news,
politique,
Ekonomika,
Chica,
Keros,
مذهب,
Bunka,
helped,
Casey,
ambient,
Sports,
kanker,
tradities,
hromadná doprava,
diskriminering,
sociálne síly,
opwarming van de aarde,
the global city,
The global city.
the global city,
The Global City.
The Global City.
Local voices, international perspectives.
Hello and welcome to the Global City. I'm Darren Abogado at Ryerson University in Toronto, Canada.
Hi, I'm Fasika from
And I'm Katejo Mabaso from the University of Johannesburg.
Moscow, I am Oksana Ganzuk.
And I'm Dasha Kasyanenko.
And I'm Emma Shea. I'm Dennis Trump from National Taiwan University of Sports. Thanks for joining us.
The Global City is a program that brings together university students from around the world to tell our own stories. Stories about the issues that face millennials no matter where we live in the world.
There is a stereotype that people our age are obsessed with their own issues and that we can be quite self-absorbed.
But you are about to hear from students all over this planet who are involved in political, social, and environmental activities.
Since 1980, over 1,200 Indigenous or Aboriginal women have been murdered or found missing in Canada. In the last few years, there's been a lot of attention and activism around this issue.
But most of the news coverage focuses on the deaths of these women and girls. One group of Ryerson students decided to celebrate their lives. They put together an art installation called Shades of Our Sisters. It focuses on two women who were murdered, how they lived, and who loved them.
Sister, sister, I want you to know you are so strong and beautiful. I gotta know, where did you go? I think of you every day since you gone away.
My name is Laura Heidenheim. I'm a recent grad from RTA School of Media, and the project that I've been working on for the last year and a bit is Shades of Our Sisters. So Shades of Our Sisters is an exhibit that was produced, designed, and run by two families of missing and murdered Indigenous women, as well as 8 Ryerson students.
They got to come into my home, we got to communicate as a family, I got to love them, they were here, they did their interviews here, and they were so compassionate and caring in helping me to tell Trisha's story about her life. She was taken at 14.
Together we designed this experience where people could come and get to know these two beautiful women, Sonia Sywink and Patricia Carpenter. The focus of Shades of Our Sisters is to actually tell the stories of who these women are, to focus on why they're loved and what's beautiful about them, instead of looking at the violence and instead of doing what mainstream media often does, which is sensationalize their stories. So when you come into Shades of Our Sisters, you'll see a few different things. You actually can see the things that Patricia and Sonia owned. You can see their handwriting. You can see the baby jumper Patricia came home in. You can see Sonia's gorgeous poetry. And then you can also watch 20-minute documentaries about each woman where you really see what their families loved about them.
I just remember she was like my cool aunt. She was one of my favorite aunties. Like, no matter what situation it was, she made it fun, and she was always laughing and smiling.
And for myself personally, it's inspired me to focus all of my studies, all of my work towards the families of MMIWG. So I've been totally humbled by their strength, and I've been humbled by their stories. And so for me personally, this is now the focus of all of my work, is to just look at how I can somehow be useful and how I can somehow be an ally.
If this documentary can save one person's life, then we've done our job.
The Ryerson students who took part in Shades of Our Sisters say it changed their lives and made them want to continue doing projects that share the stories of Indigenous peoples.
That story about Indigenous women in Canada highlights one of the major issues that continue to threaten our society in South Africa on a daily basis, which is gender-based violence.
Entrenched in our patriarchal society, it affects almost every aspect of our lives, especially those of women and children.
We look into the story of one of University of Johannesburg student who herself has been a victim of gender-based violence.
We follow her as she joins a group and learns how to deal with the abuse she receives from her boyfriend.
All I kept thinking was, keep going, don't stop, keep going, he's coming. He was so angry. As I ran, I kept thinking, it's today the day he kills me. The first time he hit me was 2 years ago. I thought it would happen only once, but it kept happening.
I started realizing something wasn't okay with Nazi about a year and a half ago. She had these random bruises on her arms, and when I asked her about it, she kept making these strange excuses to cover it up.
Gender-based violence is an umbrella category to talk about the kind of violence that men do against women. So the psychological effects are quite strong and they're quite varied as well. It does lead to depression, feeling down, low self-esteem, feeling worthless and hopeless even.
I've been part of UJCE for a while now, and one of the things we do is to educate the community about gender-based violence. So when I saw Nazi, I immediately knew what was happening and I had to do something to help her.
UJ community engagement has a long history. We assist wherever we can in community engagement projects. Our students are very much involved. We've got a large number of community engagement volunteers, and we reach out to all kinds of communities with all kinds of different projects. Know that as little as 1 out of 10 rapes are by strangers. So we need to understand that it is close at home, and that in the process, our rate of domestic violence is particularly high because children grow up in abusive circumstances. And the consequences are that then it becomes normalized. In the case of child sexual abuse, which is also common in South Africa, victims of child sexual abuse are likely to become perpetrators of crime or substance abusers or sex workers. So the consequences and outcomes of these various kinds of gender-based violence all feed into each other.
That night, when I was running to Lee's room, trying to get away from the guy I thought I loved, I felt that he was the only man for me in this world, but I was wrong. That's when I knew I needed to do something. I needed help.
Well, after a few weeks, I finally convinced Nasi to go with me to UJCE events.
The sexual abuse was horrific, and I had to go into those stories. You will be mortified what I had to endure. And I was too scared to leave. He was a very, very big man and used to force himself on me.
I emailed you my motto at the bottom of my email. Quita que consentire videtur. He who is silent is taken to agree, and that's why I'm never silent.
At that very moment, my heart was beating so fast. I just felt like goosebumps. Like, I always knew there was a lot of abuse victims out there.
Nelson Mandela, the late legend, mentioned, you can never punch with a finger. You put all fingers together. That creates a force, and that's where unity comes in.
UJCE really helped me build my confidence and helped me to know that I wasn't alone.
So one success story from community engagement?
Oh yeah, we had a school that was underperforming last year, 2015. So what happened is that we approached the school, then we offered them a tutoring program, right? It got 100% pass rate.
Wow.
Which,
Yeah.
like, you can see that community engagement is it's out there and it's working.
So guys, as you know about Nosi's story, so we believe that she will leave that horrible relationship, and like we're very proud of how Nosi is doing, and she's on the path of recovering and self-discovery.
Shout out to Nosy.
Yes, Nosi,
Yes,
you
yes,
go,
you can make
Nosi.
Nosy.
It starts with one person. One person to stand up and say no. It starts with us.
It starts with us highlights that each individual has the right to make a difference in the lives of the people. So guys, what are the programs or services that exist at your universities to support people involved in gender-based violence?
Well, here at Ryerson, we have the Office of Sexual Violence Support and Education, where people who have been victim of sexual violence on campus, off campus, during their time at Ryerson or before can have access to one of their the variety of resources that they have, including self-care resources, academic consideration, referrals to counseling, and understanding the reporting options that are available to people who have been victim of violence.
Well, what about us? Our students in 2017 founded High School of Equality. They have educational campaigns about gender, sexuality, and health.
At HEC, we have Center for Counseling and Psychological Health. Also, every student can ask for help at various NGOs that work in Moscow.
Actually, we don't have that kind of that type of problems because we have the full education of this kind of problems. So now there's not that kind of problem exist in our country and in our university.
Well, these have been such great examples of student activism, and there will be more to come later on in the show.
You are watching The Global City, a show produced by university students in over 18 countries around the world.
You can watch our shows on our website, globalcampus.network, and you can tweet us or visit our Facebook page. Today we're looking at stories about students who have gotten involved in all kinds of activism, political, environmental, social. Our next story from Taiwan is about a protest that saw thousands of students marching in the streets.
The Cross-Strait Service Trade Agreement is a treaty between China and Taiwan, was passed by Taiwan's ruling party without any announcement. If it is ratified, it will influence the everyday lives of people in Taiwan. So students around the country gathered together to hold protests against the government. It was called the Sunflower Movement. Dennis, can you explain the reason why it got that name? The leader of the Sunflower Movement said that sunflowers were symbols of hope and also represent the light of the sun. A flower store even contributed 1,000 sunflowers to this movement, which made it even more popular. When it comes to the Sunflower Student Movement, you have to know about Cross-Strait Service Trade Agreement. The agreement was about the trade between China and Taiwan. The benefit would be the trading could become more flexible. But it also means we would have to open our markets to China. Since Taiwan is a small place, our population isn't enough to support some of our industry and China's. Students felt so angry about it, so they decided to try to convince the legislator to vote it again. Students broke into the legislature illegally and sat in for 25 days. Because of this movement, the legislator returned the Cross-Strait Service Trade Agreement. Here's what that looked like.
Some of them even organized a new party that supported young people participating in political issues. Until 2016, there were 5 of them who successfully got into the legislature.
There was a song connected to this movement. It is named Island Sunrise. The lyric says that Taiwan is a democratic The lyrics said that Taiwan is a democratic country and students have the right to fight for justice and for our own future.
After the song was published, students from Taipei National University of Arts filmed a video to let the Sunflower Student Movement be known by everyone, and they attracted almost 4 million views on YouTube.
So Emma and Dennis, what happened after that?
Sunflower movement started to let people to have the awareness of signing in on the fair treaty. Moreover, lots of young people started to notice and concern issues about government's policies. Lots of amateur politicians started to devote themselves to politics.
Have there ever been any big student protests where you live, Oksana and Dasha?
There had been no student protests in Russia for many decades. Students have rights to express their opinions through protest, and they do that. Political, environmental, human rights protests had lots of young people involved, but we can't say it's only student protests.
Yes, and at HEC, we've got many cases when students struggle for their rights through petitions.
Over here, there's a current college strike where a lot of the college professors and the instructors are striking for more higher wages. And at the same time, classes are done. So students our age are actually signing petitions online and in person so that they can either get their tuition back or that they won't extend their school year, because the strike is really affecting their plans and their schedules for their academic careers. And what about over in South Africa?
In 2015, there was a huge student protest against the rise of fees that led to our president to attend the matter. And during that year, until today, as far as I'm concerned, the fees are still on hold. They haven't risen now.
The protest helped in the sense that we no longer have fee increases now. But because we want education to be free for everyone, then we need to continue to have protests like this so that we do not have to pay anymore and the education can be free.
There are many countries where no kind of protest is allowed. North Korea is one of them.
Handvoice is a human rights organization with a focus in North Korean refugees. It's all about grassroots activism and raising an awareness of social issues.
Handvoice has chapters at 4 universities in the province of Ontario, including the University of Toronto.
So first off, what's the story behind Handvoice U Toronto?
So we're actually a university chapter of Canada's leading organization on, as you mentioned, North Korean human rights and refugees. Now, Handvoice is a multifaceted organization, meaning that they have different initiatives. They focus on refugees. So, for example, they are bringing in a private sponsorship for refugees program for North Korean refugees stranded in transitory states like Thailand. Handvoice actually has a program which trains pioneers, as they call it. It's called the Handvoice Pioneers Project, to advocate on behalf of their own cause.
Have you met any of these refugees yourself?
I have. I have actually met 2. The first, her name is Audrey Park. She was the 2016 pioneer, and I had the privilege of working with her to plan the refugee speaking event that we had. So they have the 6-month training and they have the 6-month internship, and then they go around to the campuses to spread awareness. And so they have these 20-30 minutes kind of testimonies or stories that they share to many different university campuses.
What is it like for you hearing from these North Korean refugees?
there is a kind of power that resides within the refugee that you don't really see in other stories. When you hear about stories, for example, the stories that are coming out of Syria, you hear about those stories. It's not only about the fact that they were under this oppressive regime. It's not only about the fact that they were victims per se. There's a common strand of resilience that underlies this, and it's very, I think, important to emphasize this because a lot of people tend to see refugees, tend to see a lot of victims just as victims. And the single image that is shown, this monolithic image of North Korean refugees, of many different kinds of refugees as victims, is often detrimental to the cause.
What does it mean for you to advocate for North Korean human rights?
I think that ultimately it's a human issue. And I think that a lot of people, in terms of when people ask me, why do you advocate for this issue? A lot of people expect me, because I am South Korean born, and so they expect me to say, it's because I'm South Korean, it's because I have this tie to help the North Korean people. But actually, for me, I have a friend that's a North Korean refugee, and I've heard his story, but it's not necessarily that got me motivated. It's the human level, the human rights issue that got me motivated. And for me, I think it's just, as a human being, you should be able to be motivated by these different stories, whether it be in Myanmar and looking at the refugee crisis that's there, whether it be in other parts of the world. For me, the North Korean issue stuck out because of my friend and because of the kind of stories that he told me. And by researching further and getting involved with this organization, I was able to channel that into tangible action. But I think that ultimately, at the end of it, it was just a very human issue.
How do you plan to expand to other schools and open up more chapters?
We actually have. It's great because we have, Hamvoice is very dedicated to the grassroots network's cause because they believe that ultimately, for example, U of T has 80,000 students. Ryerson has, I actually don't know how many students Ryerson has, 40,000. But 40,000. Many thousands of students, right? And so the organization is very dedicated to providing a lot of training to a lot of these students and strengthening these grassroots networks. So we actually have chapters at Queen's, at Western, at U of T, at York, at McGill. And so we continue to expand because we realize that this topic, especially with the news, is growing. And so we want to capitalize on that and show people that there's more to the issue than just the international conflict.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Sean, for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
Coming up on the show, we'll hear about campus groups in South Africa and the United States who help people suffering from depression.
But first, getting green in Moscow.
Moscow, the capital of Russia, is going green. And it's not only about new parks. The students of High School of Economics get involved in various kinds of environmental activities. This is how they do it.
In Moscow, about 500 tons of plastic bottles are thrown in non-recyclable garbage every day. It was one of the reasons why HSE students founded Green HSE. It's a student NGO that promotes eco-friendly ideas in the university.
Maybe you've heard some bias about separate garbage collection in Russia and in Moscow, and that there is no separate garbage collection, but these are only rumors and the complaints of those who just haven't seen these bins, or who just don't go out from his house and is used to complain, because we even have, so Greenpeace created this map, recycle map, where everyone can see the points in his district where he can go and separate his garbage.
Green HSE operates as a media. The leader of organization controls all the campaigns. There are also several departments such as SMM, PR, HR, design and volunteers. Though Green HSE is an independent student organization, High School of Economics provides financial support through grant systems.
We are really lucky to be in High School of Economics, because High School of Economics really gives so many opportunities and money, especially for our initiatives. There we have special, I don't know, administrative sector which provides support for students to make our dreams come true.
There are some reasons why students participate in Green HSC. Among them, increased scholarship, CV, and the willing to improve the ecology.
I joined this because I'm not indifferent to all these ecological problems, such as testing cosmetics on animals and killing animals to make fur coats. Yes, this topic is especially urgent for me, and I joined HTC Green to write some articles about these problems and how we can what we can do to solve them, and some other students will. And they still are. How to say? They are friendly, and I just want to be a part of this community.
These are the achievements of Green HSC. Almost 200 kilograms of clothes have been collected as part of its Rewear campaign. Green HSC has launched a service for the separate collection of plastic waste. Special yellow containers can be found across HSC buildings. A lot of trees and shrubs were planted by HSC students as part of the Green Mobilization campaign. The university's buildings and dormitories now have recycling bins for battery disposal.
I'm sure that it's very important to teach people around you the problems of ecology that we face nowadays and how to reduce this influence on our life. And so I think that we should speak more about this on different levels, in schools, in universities, in organizations, in media, etc. So we should speak, and then people will think about and try to resolve them.
We know that in Europe the bins for separated garbage collection appeared several years ago. And in Russia, it's a bit slow in this situation. However, things slowly but surely change. What kinds of environmental groups do you have at your university in Toronto, Darren?
Well, at Ryerson, there are two main initiatives. The first initiative is Sustainability Matters, which helps educate the students of the school as well as the community surrounding the school about the importance of recycling and reducing waste in general. And we also have the Ryerson Urban Farm. If you don't know, Ryerson is in the center of downtown Toronto, which makes it hard for us to have a lot of green space. Ryerson Urban Farm made use of one of our new buildings, the George Vary Engineering Computing Center, which is in the middle of campus, and used the rooftop of it to create a farm which grew about 4,500 kilograms of food in the last year. And the most of this food is actually used to provide food for our cafeteria.
In our university, we have what we call the UJ Mandela Day 67 Minutes of Activism, where students go out to orphanages, donate, help out with chores and other activities. Mafa?
This is a wonderful initiative. It's just the only problem with it is that it only runs once in a year. So it would be beneficial to all of us if it was something that was done on a regular basis.
So far, we've seen stories that highlight many ways that students are getting involved, whether it's standing up for their own rights, supporting others who are facing violence, or raising awareness about refugees from North Korea. Our next story is about something else entirely.
Mass education is a huge problem in South Africa.
This story highlights one of the University of Johannesburg students who gives hope to learners from the disadvantaged areas.
The quality of South Africa's mathematics education places it second last out of 148 countries. Spama Njanja and other coaches from the University of Johannesburg are taking the initiative of providing extra mathematics at Lama Primary School in Soweto through an initiative called Numeric. This initiative seeks to help learners from the grades 6 to 8 improve their mathematics.
I-pass rate ya mathematics apha eSouth Africa iphansi kakhulu. Yenye yezinto futhi leyo eyandikhuthazayo into abangaba ndibe ngutishara mathematics.
Eqaleni kwami ukubhala ama-test bengunzima bengithola ama-marks aphansi Maye senyazama at least ukunyusa ama-marks wami okudlulela la bekunawo ekuqaleni.
Kusuke lokho manje benifunda i-mathematics le. Bese lokho ndiyithanda yazi i-mathematics. Bese lokho ndiyithanda. Oko ndayithandayo. It was one of the best subjects ebesoloko ndi-enjoya xa ngabe ifundiswa eklasini. Ukubona xa bazobhala itest ye-mathematics ndiyazi uba ngaba ndiyoyitya leya.
Kuzo zonke ezi sizenzayo, addition is the easiest. So I expect everybody every time we write to level up. Right. Because it's just 2 plus 2 is not what. Give them away.
Into endiyenzela yona imaths ekhaya kukuba ndifuna ukuzikhumbuza lento bendiyenza eklasini ndingayilibali xa bendibuza kusasa esikolweni.
There is something that they're doing onto this numerical. They're calling it a drizzle. It's something that they're saying you answer 50 questions within a minute. And I believe because she's studying, she's going to excel in that.
Utata yena uyayithanda imaths ukuba uhlele efuna ukubona ama-report wethu. If ke uthole 90% uzokubuza ukuba kutheni ungamfumananga 100%.
Xa ngabe ufundisa abantwana, you can also make it ibe fanyana lento le. Ukubona into endisifunda apha ku-numeric. You make i-class yakho abantwana baku-enjoy ukuba kuyo, you know.
Mna igame endiyithandayo eklasini mingle. Kuba isenza ukuba sibe energetic, siyamove around.
Coach Spa ngithanda because if into I understand, you raise up your hand after uyakubuza ukuthi yini ongayi-understand after uyamtshela. If I understand uzokuzama ukuthi uyi-understand until uyi-understand.
I just knew bangaba if I'm going to teach mathematics is what I'm going to teach because I loved it then. I still love it now. So if anything, I must teach mathematics.
Ndiyamthanda kuba xa sipasile ama-test uyasipha ama-present ama-chocolate if we get his top 3 or his top 5.
I have seen, you know, when he talks to the children, he talks with an open heart, with an open mind. He makes children to want to listen more.
Just to work with those kids, to see the impact that we're having after school, taking those hours of extra maths, you know, it's fulfilling for us as teachers.
For an African child to be given this opportunity of a basic mathematics, she has been given a key to life.
Mina ngiyabancedisa abanye abantwana bestrugglisha kwi-mathematics. If bangibiza, if umuntu ungitshela ukuthi ustrugglisha nga-something, ngiyahamba ngiye kuye after ngimenza ukuthi a-understand.
Ndifuna abantwana abasokolayo kakhulu ekupaseni mathematics. You know, abantwana bayazi maths into enzima, abantwana bafumana 10%, kubona. Because ndirealize into eyi-1 kwexesha kulo lonke ixesha nguna okonsenza le degree education simane siya ku-school experience uba ngaba akuba bonke abantwana abayifelayo i-mathematics abangenayo i-capability yokuyipasa, ukubona. Abanye nje ufumanisa into yoba ngaba umhlawumbi umntu akana-relationship right notishara wakhe, so loo nto imenze bene-attitude nakule nto yale maths ayifundayo.
In the US, 1 in 3 college students suffers from depression, a disorder that leaves sufferers feeling hopeless.
Our global city partners at California State University Fresno sent us the story about a program called Health Pulse. POSE stands for Peer Ambassadors of Wellness Services. They are a group of students who help classmates who are struggling to get through the day.
For the last 2 years of my life, I've been homeless. And I had to support my family on my own because my parents didn't.
Alana Hayes is an 18-year-old freshman at Fresno State, but the last thing on her mind is school.
I started not wanting to be around people. I didn't sleep anymore. A lot of the things that I used to enjoy doing, I just didn't anymore. A lot of the people that I always wanted to be around, I just didn't anymore.
Alana has been diagnosed with depression. She went to Fresno State's Health Center for help.
It's helpful for students to hear from other students, particularly for topics of mental health, depression and anxiety, trying to again, reduce that stigma that's around it by having frank, open discussions about it, by having it be a regular topic of conversation, kind of part of that regular landscape.
At Fresno State, 1 in 3 students suffers from stress, 1 in 9 has depression, and about 1 in 5 has anxiety. That's where Health PAWS comes in. PAWS stands for Peer Ambassadors of Wellness. They're a group of students who help their classmates who are struggling just to get through the day.
We love to keep our bulldogs healthy. Go Dogs!
PAWS, they're a volunteer student group here in our office. It stands for Peer Ambassadors of Wellness. So they're a student volunteer group that, again, works with the Wellness Services Department here at the Health Center. They help us go out on campus and engage Fresno State students in health and wellness activities, health and wellness programs and services. They focus on a variety of topics, including things like stress and anxiety, depression, physical activity, and nutrition. And those topics are actually guided by what Fresno State students have told us they want or need.
I am courageous. Public health major Amel Kabir joined as a peer ambassador.
We try to be pretty active on campus. At first, I think when I applied, I was just hoping for an opportunity to get involved in campus, but I didn't realize how much we actually do. Right now we're having presentations where we're having some PAWS go into classrooms, just talking about ways that you can relieve that stress, because as college students, you can't think of a time when you're not stressed, especially getting close to midterms.
Amel and the other PAWS hand out goodie bags with proven stress relievers.
So I believe it's blowing bubbles is a stress reliever, pulling out a piece of coloring paper and coloring that, just the action of coloring just kind of sets your mind at ease.
Cassie Valencia is working on her master's degree for public health. She said volunteering with Health PAWS influenced her to change her major.
The health center here understands that college is a stressful time. I go crazy every day. I myself go to the counseling services here, and sometimes I go in just to check up on myself.
Alana has been visiting the health center for a month now, and she's been working on her personal happiness. She has advice for others who are suffering from depression or anxiety.
Don't be afraid to ask for help. Go talk to somebody, even if it's just a friend or a parent or a teacher or somebody.
With Carla Guerrero, I'm Ruby Dalao at Fresno State for the Global City.
Depression is also an issue in South Africa. For cultural reasons, many black communities in South Africa are unaware of this. And as a result, this affects how black communities deal with the signs of depression at school.
I walked around like I was fine. At least I thought I was fine.
I come from a cultural background that doesn't really let you talk about things.
Angiyele kamereni. Ngisamuzwa ugogo screaming so loud. They lit impepho, and I can still hear them.
When you're a kid, they teach you to not be vocal about your fears because they will come true.
You're not told to talk about your feelings, and you're not exposed to a world where people care about how you feel and what you think. It really affected me growing up.
In black communities, traditionally and over time, depression hasn't really been languaged about. In my experience, I find that it's very hard to capture the experience of depression and to really fully describe it in such a way that one is able to get a clear sense. So you'd find culture tends to mask the experience of depression amongst Africans, where you find that people are encouraged to almost to find ways of getting over it. You know, that it's kind of positioned as something that's quite unnatural. Perhaps you may be labeled as somebody who doesn't have enough faith, because I know religiosity plays a huge role in terms of how depression is defined amongst African people. So you find that the general message, the general thread that comes out is that one should quickly get over, or that one should, you know, find other ways of just focusing their attention away from what they're experiencing. Generally, I think a stigma, a cultural stigma that still exists around, you know, so what does it mean when you're depressed? The labeling around it, where you are described as that person who is depressed rather than someone who perhaps has been diagnosed with a depressive illness.
Atakuonyesha que haupaswi kusema hivyo, haupaswi kusema vile. Ifo tu kukua nguvu sana.
My name is Dankiso Mokwena, and I am a third-year social work student at the University of Johannesburg. One of the biggest challenges is that the way things are set up within our cultures and the society that we live in is that you are either perfectly normal or perfectly functioning, or there's something completely wrong with you, or you're completely broken. We were never taught to open up and speak about your feelings. There are certain things that you just can't bring yourself to discuss with your family or with your peers.
So you sort of adapt that philosophy to a lot of things. You choose not to put it out there because you're afraid. You don't want it to be manifested in your life.
Ngiyakhumbula ngene eklasini khona lo mfundo yethu loyingibuza ukuthi yena right.
I would go to her before class and ask her, are you doing okay, or are you fine?
Ngiphendule ngithi right.
As time went on, I realized that it was getting harder and harder for her to keep up the act. She was chilling with fewer friends, coming to class alone, sometimes looking very, very distant in class.
I was in isolation, not realizing that I was isolating myself.
That is when I realized that she was actually also going through depression. So I think it was very fortunate that she was able to confide in someone at the end. And I did the best I could to make her aware of the services that were available to her, the places
that I could express myself and find people who will listen to me.
She's currently in the process of getting help, and I think she's winning.
This story raises awareness of depression by also looking at the stigma attached to Black depression.
At Ryerson, there's a variety of ways that you can get help if you need it. For general wellness, the school provides every week therapy dogs for those who need just general ways to get away from the everyday stress of their lives. And for those who need more serious help, there is the Center for Student Development and Counseling, which offers to students a team of psychologists that are readily available for you if you need it. However, the problem with this is that sometimes, actually most times, the wait list is very long. Unless what you need is very, very urgent, the wait list can be as long as 6 months until you can see a psychologist. And how about at HSE?
At HSC, there is a Center for Counseling and Psychological Health. It works anonymously and for free for students, and they are pretty fast. They have an application form on their web page where any student can write a letter to a psychologist.
We do have a problem with depression in our country. As you know, there was a flash mob on Facebook with hashtag Face of Depression. where users wrote about problems with mental health. In Russia, most people consider that depression is something not serious because the person appears physically healthy, that he's able to work, has some money, family, so he has no reason to be upset, to feel blue. That's why depression and mental illnesses are stigmatized in our society.
And Russian social media users also participated in that flash mob, and there are many educational campaigns being held to break the stereotype in our country. And we do hope everyone will take better care of their mental health.
Darren, I've heard that Canada is often listed as one of the safest places in the world, especially compared with your neighbors to the south.
You're right, Dennis. Our gun laws are much stricter than in the United States, and as a result, there are far fewer shooting deaths. But shootings in Toronto are on the rise, actually doubling since 2014. Over 400 people have been shot so far this year. Louis March is a Ryerson student and founder of the Zero Gun Violence movement, and he's trying to change those statistics.
The violence movement is a collaboration of over 40 different organizations, agencies, and programs that have a vested interest in dealing with this issue of gun violence. So we talk about education and awareness, we talk about advocacy, and we talk about engagement. Who do we engage? We engage that population that is involved, the victims of the crime, right? The people that perpetrate, and we put them at the table, and we said, what could we have done to prevent this situation from happening?
So, how did Zero Gun Violence come to be?
Zero Gun Violence movement came about after the shootings in the Eaton Center and Danzig. That they were very public shootings. So I called a community meeting with some organizations that I had previously worked with. I said, what would it take to get to zero gun violence in the city? And people looked at me as though I'm crazy and said, it's impossible. There will always be gun violence. And I said, hell no, right? Because we already have zero gun violence in the city, but it's only in certain communities for certain people.
Now, in your own words, what would it take to get to zero gun violence?
Nobody is born with a gun in their hand. How did the gun get there? The narrative that we get from the government, the narrative that we get from the police, the narrative that we get from the media is seldom a full narrative or a correct narrative.
How do those narratives differ from the actual situations in the communities?
The government wants to look good. The police wants to look good. The media wants to sensationalize a story. They're self-serving narratives. The government, they have to get votes. So what we're looking at, a tough on crime mindset, that everybody feels good, I feel safer if we just lock up these guys and throw the keys away, right? Let's do that. But it's more to it than that. There's socioeconomic conditions. We know the profile of somebody most likely to get involved in criminal activity. The profile is about neglect, rejection, lack of opportunity, lack of supports, lack of services, lack of education, lack of employment. When kids are telling me that it's easier for them to get guns than jobs, something's wrong with that.
How would you describe the current situation in the communities that you work in right now?
It's scary. The reality of what's going on in the communities in Toronto right now, we can ignore it and pretend it doesn't exist, or we can face up to the fact that things are changing. And gunshots, gunfire, gunplay is normalized in their life.
What has the reaction that you've gotten from politicians been?
One politician off the record said it's political kryptonite to deal with gun violence because there's the public perception, right, that I want to be safe. Crime generally has come down over the last 20, 25 years. Gun violence incident in the last 3 years has gone up. But before that, there was a significant reduction. But any politician, they're going to say, you know, I'm going to be tough on crime, and they're going to get votes. For them to say, no, we should go down to the seed causes and we should deal with that. People are going to say, why play around with it? Lock them up and throw the key away. Okay, let's keep it real. A lot of these kids are not angels, okay? But they're not the devil either. We can do better. These kids deserve better, but we have to acknowledge the problem in its totality and not just in a self-serving interest.
All right, Louis, thank you very much for coming in. It's been wonderful to talk to you.
No, thanks for having me.
This show has all been about students at universities all over the world working on making a difference, be it about gun violence, food insecurity, or gender-based violence.
In a society where we're facing issues such as poverty, lack of proper housing, we still have few people who take objective and to help the needy.
And here at the University of Johannesburg, we have a civil engineering society who are using their skills to help out in the community. We call this story Being Civil.
I always say civil engineering is the mother of all engineers because you're first for the people and then you're the engineer. Honestly, I blindly came into this degree. Like, just because I did civil technology at school, I thought, oh, it's going to be just about the same thing. And first year, second year, it was all academics, until I was proactive within the society.
Usually civil society is really a society that is aimed at giving our engineering students, not just civil, but anyone, opportunity to develop leadership skills, to get involved in contact with the industry, networking with the industry, and also just to expose them to the outside world, rather than just the book study and the theoretical study at varsity. So it's opening the doors to engineering out there.
You know, I enjoy young people, the company of young people, and the laughter and the fun young people have. It is kind of, you know, it lifts the spirit of the home quite a bit. Civil society, well, they did a lot of painting for us, and they also planted some grass, and they socialized with us. And in the end, one of them fixed my light in my room. You know, he fixed it very, very nicely, and well, I was quite pleased, and of course he didn't charge me.
The bricks, it was Mr. Kruger's idea originally. What he thought is he wanted to expose students to other emerging market worlds and countries, to see what their infrastructure looks like, to see what their people are like, what the culture is like, to give us a direct comparison between our country and other countries that are in a similar position.
India has got a lot of similar problems that we have got. There's a lot of slums, there's problems with infrastructure, so it's a good opportunity to have a look at how they manage this and how they deal with these sort of issues. And hopefully we can learn from that and bring some of that back to South Africa.
As a student society, what our engineering students will take from that is how you will make it completely different when you come to South Africa. I mean, Kyle's graduating next year. If he's on a project that's quite similar, he'll know via his experiences in India that, hey, I witnessed such a problem that was in a third world country, and me being in one myself, this is how I'll tackle that problem in the work field.
So this is a very simplified prototype of this meter of light. The impact that this will have on the community, you know, the students now can study, because I mean you can't really study
with candlelight.
With candlelight, precisely.
With a skill like that as a civil engineer, you're not only creating a better form of living for people of society, but you're saving lives at the same time. Not in the sense of the living, the comfort of living, but literally saving people's lives.
Such an awesome story coming out of Johannesburg. It's so encouraging for me to see people using their expertise and going against the stereotype that people our age don't want to stand up for anything, or that they're so lazy, and that people all around the world are standing up for what they believe in, from here and maybe even in Johannesburg.
I don't know about you, Katleho, but this has been a wonderful experience. I mean, to learn about other countries, to learn about community engagement groups, and to realize that students have a role to play in the betterment of the community.
Well, this has been a wonderful experience indeed, Mafa, because I realized that some of our stories relate to their stories. That means we have the same issues that they're facing. So this has been indeed a wonderful experience.
And what did you think, Moscow?
Well, the show was fantastic. We enjoyed every minute spent here, and the themes we discussed were powerful and very important. For us, it's a unique experience to share our problems with Canada, South Africa, and Taiwan. Let's keep up with a good job.
As for me, I hope that via such global dialogues we can improve the world. Thank you very much from Russia, with love.
And for you, Taiwan?
I think that there are many different point views in one thing, and we always cannot predict how well the things end up. So when you find something wrong and you can make it better, why not just do it? A student is not only a student, even though we know we will meet a lot of difficulties while sticking to the things that we care about. But I think it's okay, because I believe that we just try our best and spare no efforts to overcome all the obstacles we meet. A student can be very powerful than we thought.
I think it's just so important for us to use our voices and stand up for what we believe in.
And that is for this episode of The Global City. Thanks for watching. We actually had so many universities from around the world interested in taking part that we produced a second Global City show on student activism with our partners in California, the United Kingdom, and Brazil.
You can watch that show, and this one again if you like, on our website, globalcampus.network, or by visiting our Facebook page.